Great. Thanks for everyone for submitting the polls. Looking at the results, we hope to widen the conversation about how these aspects influence the future of our work. So let's dive in. I would like to introduce John Madringa, our Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer, whose experience encompass nearly 25 patents, 30 years of wide-ranging international design and innovation expertise with companies such as Audi, Honeywell, and the Port of San Diego. With that, say hello to John at our FreshForm office.
Thank you for the introduction, Raylina, and hello everybody. It's great to have you joining us for this session. I am speaking to you live from the FreshForm office in San Diego, or at least this is what we used to call the office not too long ago. While this particular space is empty, the FreshForm team, all working remotely, is in their respective spaces and experiencing our best year ever in our 20-year history. And today, I'd like to share a few of our thoughts, a few of our perspectives on what we believe to be some of the reasons. But first, I want to tell you a story to just kind of set things up. It was 120 years ago, and this man was just fiddling with a small cardboard box. He was working in his office, which was a dimly lit bicycle shop, and the box was from a bicycle inner tube. After a few minutes of fiddling with this box, a sudden and giant rush of exhilaration came over him. He was overwhelmed. He had just realized that in his hands, he held the answer to a question that had baffled thousands of curious people for centuries. He observed that when you twist the cardboard box, the surfaces of the box would twist with it and bend. That man's name was Wilbur Wright, and that chance encounter with that box became the answer to twisting an airplane's wing, allowing an airplane to turn, the first prototype of ailerons. That technology has benefited us today, a technology that would change the world forever. Wilbur was prepared to see the connection in his mind's eye, and it became the basis for controlled flight. But let's just think about this for a moment. While Wilbur's discovery ultimately changed the world in a massive way, no computer software was used, no sophisticated equipment was used, no big budget was afforded to him, and he had nothing more than a high school education, this insatiable curiosity, and a cardboard box. It's a perfect example of a low-fidelity prototype. 2020 has shifted the way that we work in extraordinary ways. We have all had to wonder how this is going to turn out, how it will impact us going forward, now and into the future. We've all heard from the theoretical experts, and we've all been subjected to this endless drone of predictions. No one could be blamed for just wanting to curl up in a ball and just wait it all out. Today, we want to move beyond that fray and explore maybe the silver lining of this shift as it relates to the office, our workspaces. The silver lining that's afforded all of us through today's challenges because of what we see in it, embracing the challenge, and with that, a sense of optimism. Throughout history, we are measured by our performance in moments of challenges. And today we want to get the conversation going about how all of us are approaching the challenges of today and how we are all settling ourselves up for tomorrow. The office, or our workspace as we call it, is where creativity and imaginations as humans mix with the environments around us and where we leverage the technical resources to do our jobs. This overlap is critical to understand, for it is where our workspace truly comes together. Our natural human creativity converts into ideas, where we seek technology to further our range, and where our environment has a direct influence on our outcomes. So today, let's first consider creativity. It's the aspect of the workplace we call us, and it's what it means to be human. If there was one thing that we should all remember today, is that creativity is perhaps our greatest equalizer. and that remarkable brilliance can come from any human being, anyone on this call. In fact, history has shown time and time again, everyday people can solve incredible problems in the eye of a challenge. For all of us, ideas are our currency. They are the method of exchange for creative problem solvers. Louis Pasteur once said that chance favors the prepared mind. It means that our chances are better if we're simply paying attention, and that we have prepared and opened our minds to see solutions rather than fixating on the problems. As humans, we make that conscious choice all of the time. Do we permit challenges to intimidate us, or do we embrace challenges to be inspired by how we can help solve them? So when you think about your workspaces, you must first think about how you, as a human, approach it in the first place. Do you bring a sense of optimism associated with a problem solver, or pessimism of a person intimidated by a challenge? Are you purposely naive and willing to embrace some serious divergent thinking, or are you encumbered with a sense of reality that is pinning you down? Or perhaps you're a little bit of both, an optimist but also realistic. My daughter likes to say that I have a 12-year-old's imagination in a 50-year-old's body. I'm always tinkering, exploring, and I'm always curious. And at the same time, we have significant client expectations to fulfill. We have a business to run. I have a family to care for. So I'd love to hear later about what the balance is in your life between that optimism and that realism. Today, we are surrounded by an unlimited supply of opportunity to make things better. Who are those amongst us that are going to be the ones to embrace it? We invite you to see the silver lining of opportunity that surrounds you. At the end of this session, we will share a few links that we hope that you'll find interesting. Our CEO shared one of those links with me a few weeks ago. It's a fascinating TED Talk regarding creativity and whether schools are suppressing it. It's worth a read, and it's worth your time if you are interested. Now let's consider another aspect of the workspace, hybridity, the point at which we as human beings intersect with technology. It is often referred to as the fourth industrial revolution, and it is certainly upon us. We as humans are becoming more and more intimately connected to machines, the Internet of Things, the Internet of Services, and a plethora of autonomous decision-making. Let's just think about this for a moment. How close are you to your smartphone right now? How often do you use it to augment yourself as a human? Have you ever used it to recall a memory or retrieve information or navigate somewhere? I'm sure we all have. In fact, I think we probably can't live without it. We are all witnessing technology getting closer and closer to us as humans. In fact, already there are examples of where the human and the technology have become one. Pacemakers were first introduced to the human body more than 60 years ago now, where a little computer machine delivers electrical stimuli to the heart to help keep a person alive. Another example is today's life-changing embedded technology for diabetics. Incredible machines that automatically measure your glucose level and deliver insulin. And only a couple of weeks ago, Elon Musk gave a live demonstration of his new company, Neuralink, where they are leading with implanted brain-to-machine interfaces. Now just imagine where hybridity is going if we're already doing these things now. Just imagine. Like the industrial revolutions that have come before, where we saw widespread mechanization in agriculture, the emergence of electricity, automobiles and airplanes, or the phenomenal rise of computers and telecommunications, the fourth industrial revolution leading to hybridity is redefining what's next. It's simultaneously exciting It's daunting, and I'm sure to many, including me, it can be a little scary. We're all using Zoom today. Some of us probably even take it for granted by now. But I can remember my very first video call in business. It was decades ago. We had to book the special room weeks in advance. It was very full of special equipment that was extremely expensive. We had to have security provide us with the access. We needed to establish this really complex satellite link, and an entire team of specialists had to be standing by to help us with the inevitable glitches. But were those workspaces from decades ago really less effective than the workspaces of today? Today we're connected and we share knowledge anywhere at any time. We theoretically have more to help us than ever before in history. But is it helping us to solve the real problems of today? Consider what's available to you. Some on this call undoubtedly have more and some have less. Consider what Wilbur had. One thing I didn't tell you is that the Wright brothers had many competitors. The one in the day that was seen as the favorite was Samuel Langley. He was the competitor who had virtually everything. He had limitless resources available to him. He had an excellent education from Harvard, and he had all of the financial backing that he needed. But in the end, it didn't bring him the success. The same success that a cardboard box and an open mind did for Wilbur. Anyone that knows me knows that I am an early adopter of technology. I love wearable computing, 3D printing. My place has voice-controlled LED lighting and much more. But to this day, the technology is only a conduit. In fact, my favorite technology is sketching ideas from my mind onto a piece of paper. Technology doesn't make you smarter or any more creative or guarantee that if you have it, you're going to be successful. Technology, what we call hybridity, augments you as a human, but the hard part is still up to you. A third component of the workspace is what we characterize as the climate. We're not talking necessarily about the temperature or the weather. Now, this is the volume that is around you, the sights, the sounds, the interactions, the community, and everything else in the environment, wherever you find yourself. So much of our outcomes are inspired by the climate, and oftentimes we are not even aware of just how influential this is or in our ability to manage it. More than ever before, largely due to the technology and hybridity I just spoke of, our climate can be extremely dynamic and afford us different stimuli throughout the day, throughout the week, or even the year. Consider how meeting with a friend at a local coffee shop affects you differently than sitting at a desk in an office. Consider how the lighting or the music influences how you work. Do you think differently depending on the climate that you are in? Maybe more importantly, do you make intentional changes to your climate to optimize your thinking and your work? Rather than simply accepting the climate as being what it is, consider how taking a proactive stance will impact your quality of life and your quality of output, possibly in profound ways. At FreshForm, we've jokingly called this Feng Shui 2.0. It is the ability for us as individuals to drive the performance of our climates. Our climates influence us, but the key takeaway is that we can influence our climates to influence us, no more than ever. Over the last several months, we've all had to rethink our homes to accommodate the wholesale change that COVID has brought about. I'm willing to bet that all of us have tailored our climate in some small way to make us feel more comfortable, more efficient, and more inspired. Perhaps it's some new plants, or some new paint on the wall, or we've rearranged our desk, put a picture on there, or a new desktop image, or even having fun with virtual Zoom backgrounds. The silver lining associated with our forced new climate is that we realize that we can be more flexible than ever before, more proactive, that we can drive the experiences rather than having it drive us. Now we understand that the inputs that we put into managing our unique climates will establish a return on that investment to us through the uniquely meaningful experiences that they provide. What if we evolve that drive from a single idea or curiosity into a purposeful series of actions that we take for ourselves? Actions that are directly tied to improving the performance of our outcomes through the refinements in our climate. For me, one of the most eye-opening proof points on this topic is an article by David Byrne of the Talking Heads fame. In this article, he correlates how music over the centuries has been so influenced by the climate from which they were created. He shares how sounds reflect and perform differently in a cathedral or an open air venue or in a small bar like CBGB's where he got his start, and how the designer, or the composer in this case, adapts their craft to provide the experience they envision given the climate that they are in. Today, we are joining you from San Diego, a place that's so well known in the world for its beautiful weather, its beautiful beaches. Like, I'm in awe of Raylina's beautiful view and how inspiring it is. What influence is that having on her? Throughout my career, I've had the opportunity to visit teams in their endless fields of green in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, in the hustle and bustle of industry in Ingolstadt, Germany, and in the tranquil and beautiful setting of Toulouse, France. I've even had a team member that has lived on a sailboat, pitching and rolling as the tides come in. And in all cases, I can tell you that their climate had a direct impact on their work. I can also tell you that rarely, if ever, did they correlate the characteristics of their outcomes to their climate. So I leave you with this question. If we have proof that the climate directly influences our craft and our thinking and our creativity, and we now have the technology that provides us with almost limitless options to influence our climate, then how might we influence our climate to improve our personal performance in the ways that matter most individually to us? As the FreshForm team has evolved this year, and as we've all found our rhythm, we've realized that the workspace is the place where it all comes together. It is where the technology intersects with us as humans. And it is where our passion, our enthusiasm, and our will resides. And it is where whatever is surrounding us at any point in time inspires us. We see this intersection of creativity, hybridity, and climate as where your workspace is too. It is uniquely inspiring to you, and the results from it are uniquely your own. This is where your inspiration emanates from. It is where your contributions to the future comes from. This is the basis for your solution in the moments of challenge. I want to thank you all for listening, and now I want to hand it back to Raylina so that we can open up the dialogue, and we're happy to field some of the questions that you have asked.
Great. Thank you, John, for sharing your perspective on how creativity, hybridity, and climate can be used to reimagine the workspace. And I can definitely say my view is equally distracting, but also it allows me to be productive because I love that natural light. But let's jump into discussion. We had a couple questions come in that I'll throw back to you, John. The first one being, what is FreshForm's vision for the workspace over the next few years?
Thanks, Raylina. Yeah, FreshForm Vision is to, in a way, continue on the trajectory that we're on. If there's one word that stands out when I think about FreshForm's future, it's limitless and borderless. We all happen to be, all of the FreshForm team happen to live in San Diego right now, but that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a requirement for the future. Like I just covered, some of the technology that's available today and the way that our climate inspires us might actually provide benefits that are currently unknown to FreshForm. So we're really excited, we're really optimistic about what this kind of forced change has put upon us.
Great, thanks, Sean. And so haven't seen too many comment or questions coming in, but if you have any, feel free to put them in the chat. We do have one more that we were sent. And so that is, how does this talk relate to experience design or just design in general?
So when you think about us as designers, us as creatives, and us as creating experiences for others, and even better when they're uniquely meaningful to those people, our ability to come up with that creative is inspired by our creativity, our hybridity, and our climate. And what we wanted to cover with you today is 3 perspectives, each one that can be optimized to provide that inspiration that you're looking for as creatives, to provide those experiences that you're designing for others.
Great, thank you. So I have a question from Frida, and she's asking, how do I spot opportunities for innovation?
Well, when I mentioned the Louis Pasteur quote, which, as everyone who knows me knows, that's my favorite quote. I probably say it too many times. Chance favors the prepared mind. I guarantee you, when you're looking out into the world, there are more opportunities than you're even witnessing. So opening up your mind, opening up your eyes to spot those opportunities, and then having the courage, like that 12-year-old thinker, to imagine how you might make them better, to provide solutions, and then to use your professional training, your processes, your tools to really make them happen. But yeah, I invite everybody to really think that quote through. Chance favors the prepared mind. How might you prepare yourself more than those around you?
Yep, I've definitely heard you say that many times.
Yeah.
I love it as well. So thank you. And then we have another question from Sumesh, and his question is, it seems like the future workspaces will involve AR, VR, XR technology to some extent. Can you talk a little bit about the idea of a virtual climate encroaching on your physical one?
Yeah, for me, like I said, I'm a tech junkie. I think augmented reality, virtual reality, and real reality are all going to coexist. I think if there was one message I wanted to provide to you, and it's that the technology doesn't guarantee success. It is an enabler, right? It helps us. Just like a carpenter using a hammer or a screwdriver. It's a tool. Your brain power, paying attention is really what matters. And I think when augmented reality and virtual reality achieve new levels of performance, it's just going to be the same as any tool today. The more capable the tool, the more of a joy it is to use, and the faster we're able to work. But the inspiration still needs to come from our heads.
Love that. And then we have another one from Jackie. She says, how has working online affected collaboration? And are there any tools that you have found helpful for online collaboration?
I can't speak for everybody. I can speak for myself. I really didn't like it at the beginning. I don't like being on camera. I like being more collaborative with people in front of a whiteboard, a physical whiteboard. But we've all had to change. And I've definitely, I think, moved into a stride where we use at FreshForm all the tools, right? We use Teams, we use Zoom, we use Google, all of them. One of my favorite tools so far that's been incredibly productive for collaborating in a virtual setting is Miro. We're using it extensively now. It's wonderful to kind of keep it rough and to be able to zoom out and zoom in as things tighten up. So if you haven't used Miro, I would definitely encourage you to give it a try.
Great. Yep, I would say I use Miro a lot, especially for those that are used to having workshops or facilitating them. Miro is a virtual tool that you can use to pretty much brainstorm and sticky note all your ideas out. So from brainstorming to planning, it's a really great tool, and I can attest to that. And so we have another question, John, from Taki, and they say many large corporations have announced the shift to allow their employees to work from home for however long they want because they've seen a spike in productivity. Do you think there's a specific point in which work from home productivity will start declining and should revert back to working in-house or in office?
That's an excellent question. I think if we just look at history, maybe as an example, the pendulum, if you will, throughout history tends to swing really far. What I mean by that is we'll go from one circumstance to another and we'll swing maybe a little bit too far that direction, and ultimately we will settle back in somewhere in the middle. I don't personally think we're ever going back to how it was pre-COVID, but I also, maybe to your question, I don't see us sustaining where it is in these extreme levels either. I see the pendulum swinging back to some, middle point, some comfort level. Obviously, for a lot of us, we can work remotely because of what we do. But I mean, it's important to point out that not everyone can. My brother-in-law is an airline pilot, right? It's very hard for him to work remotely. So I think the situation is a little different for everybody, especially if you're dealing with physical products. I think if my background is an industrial designer, and if you need to explore something physically, touch it with your hands, it's usually easier to be face-to-face or in the proximity of others to make that happen. But who knows? Maybe augmented reality and virtual reality will solve that challenge as well. Great question.
Great answer. The next question we have is from Betty. Oh, I think I know this Betty. Hi, Betty. As companies are considering remote work, either full or partial, how might we infuse company culture remotely?
Yeah, that's a great question. I can share some ideas. Some of the things we've done is, and I'm hoping a lot of people have, is we've had virtual happy hours, right? Where we all get together and we have a drink after work. And in fact, we have a sommelier that works at FreshForm, Marcus, and he's actually walked us through wine tasting after work, all in a virtual setting. And then, of course, nothing beats the human touch. More often than not, we like to send handwritten notes, a little gift, a little thank you, a little congratulations card. Maybe someone got engaged or is having a baby. So I think company culture is going to endure. And I think seeing the opportunities, whether it be virtual or physical or some sort of hybrid in between, is it's important to recognize that there's wonderful tools available to you on either situation to really grow the company culture. One last thought is rewards and recognition. I mean, we have teams that work very, very hard for the companies that we work for, and rewarding people and recognizing people is a timeless act. It'll never go out of style. It doesn't matter whether you're shaking their hand in person or rewarding them or recognizing them through a virtual setting. So that would be another thing just to always remember to keep up. But great question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a couple other things. I think the small things always have a big impact, especially like even if you're not super familiar with someone, just reaching out and saying, hey, like, how are you doing? Or just doing some small gestures. I know John has run me a couple things from the office over to my house, like this light here. So just small gestures, I think, really help with infusing the company culture remotely. All right, so we'll take the last two questions. The first one being from Susan, and Susan says, or she asks, can you share some examples of how you've applied your principles to your client-based projects or to your own office?
To us and asked for guidance and consultation on that. Some of them have had the same questions regarding culture and things like that. So much in the way I answered the last question, we are more than willing to provide them with the various kind of ideas, brainstorming, things that have worked for us, may work for them. And we're happy to share in any cases with that. So thank you for that. Yeah, absolutely.
And to wrap up our Q&A, this question's from Nia. In terms of the arts, primarily physical work, how do you see the mixing between artistic environments, remote and technical ones merging together in the future? So let me see if I can reread that one.
Yeah, it's interesting. I can just tell you personally. So I'm an artist on the side. I mean, I just can't help myself. I like to paint, draw, build things out of wood. It's my happy place. So ever since I've been working at home, and I'm usually not in the FreshForm office, I've on off hours been painting. My wife creates custom dance costumes, and we thought that the whole dance community was going to cease to exist because of having to be virtual. In fact, it's blossomed. So she's doing more physical art in creating these costumes than ever. I even bought a 3D printer for my place so that I could take from what's in my mind and make it physical. So if you look at companies like Michael's and Hobby Lobby and others, business is booming because of people working from home, working in their environment, and looking for that opportunity to be an artist in that space. Great question.
Great, so that wraps up our Q&A discussion part of the session. So I'd like to take a few minutes to leave you with a framework that may be used to help yourself reimagine your own workspace. Since we don't expect you to remember everything John said, even though it was all great, we created a tool that you can use within your own teams to continue this conversation. The worksheet will, the design worksheet allows you to jot down your own ideas, share and reference the worksheet with your team as a collaborative tool. So please go to the link provided to access the template and any additional reference materials that our team has collected on the 3 concepts. And as a reminder, the session has been recorded and will be available on San Diego Design Week website. And as a final activity, we'd like to get your thoughts on the future of the workspace and your own action plan. If you could take a quick minute to vote, that'd be great. We have about 10 seconds left. Great. So here's some of the results. It seems like the biggest influence on our workspace has been creativity, and what we plan to do in the future is really just relooking at our own remote workspaces. So thank you for participating in that. And on behalf of John, myself, and the FreshForm team, thank you for joining our session today, and enjoy San Diego Design Week.